Hello, QUT journalism students. My name is Graham Cairns. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a radio journalist of 40 years, as well as an occasional lecturer and tutor here at QUT and at other universities around Southeast Queensland. Today, I want to talk to you about reading out loud, as a newsreader. Now, you might be saying, I know how to read. I've been doing it since I was a kid. Well, that's true, but Lauren Bacall, in a famous scene from the movie To Have and to Hold, dropped the line, "You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow." Well, it was a great line, but it was wrong. To whistle is a lot more than to put your lips together and blow. If you put your lips together and blow, the most likely result is a raspberry rather than a whistle, because to whistle takes both breath, the blowing, and articulation, shaping the mouth and the tongue and the teeth and the palate, and the same applies to speaking and reading out loud. Before I begin, an observation. Many of you, and you might be one, feel uncomfortable and don't like the sound of your voice. Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news first, the way that you hear your voice coming back to you on a recording is how everybody else in the world hears it. The good news is people don't run shrieking, so it's not as bad as you think. Why does your voice sound different? Well, normally when you hear somebody else speaking, it's just the vibrations that their voice creates in the air, hitting your eardrums and being converted into sound, your brain synapses, all that stuff. Complicated, but it works. When you speak, you hear your own voice coming back at you from various places around, walls, surfaces, but you also hear it from inside your head. Now, I joke about some radio announcers I've worked with being well-modulated voices reverberating inside empty skulls. And I'm not suggesting that your skull is empty, but what I am saying is that when you speak, you hear not only from the outside, but also from the inside of your head. And so you sound different to the way you sound on a recording where it is just from outside. As I say, nothing you can do about it, except to improve your articulation, the way that your voice sounds when you use articulation. Let's take a look at the difference between articulation and phonation. Now, our voice is created by both the articulation and phonation systems. Within the phonatory system, the basic sound is produced by the vibration of vocal cords. That's called voiced sound, and it's got this buzzy characteristic. At this stage in the vocal production system, it's still a naked vibrational sound. Voiced sound, for spoken word speech, ends up sounding significantly differently when it hits the articulatory system and continues to be shaped fluidly throughout the voicing process. You see, the articulatory system is where your mouth and your nose and your throat contribute to muscular constrictions at least, that reshape the passageway and create a resonant chamber for the air to pass through. It's here in that resonating articulatory system where our personal vocal characteristics are shaped, and it's split partly between nature and nurture. You know how some people just have naturally beautiful voices and others don't? Well, there's not much you can do about the nature, but what you can do is change the nurture. You can change the way that your speech voice characteristics come out. Now, as I say, partly it's the body, but partly it's you learning how to use the articulatory system. Things like accent, things like articulation, things like the shape of your mouth and your nasal passage and your pharynx, and using those. But even before we get to that, there's the engine room of our voice and speech, and that's the lungs and diaphragm, which you can also see in this picture. Now, you'll see the diaphragm here on the top of the stomach, and it looks like, I don't know, an upside down boomerang. And many people think that when you fill your lungs, you push down on the diaphragm. No, in fact, it's the opposite. It's the diaphragm opening up that creates more space for the lungs. And where that becomes important is in sitting. There's a song that some of you may know, probably because your parents played it. by a singer-songwriter called Harry Chapin that goes, "I am the morning DJ at WOLD, where an aging disc jockey sings, 'There's a tire around my gut from sitting on my butt and it's never going to go away.'" Well, the tire around your gut is not the only problem that sitting on your butt will give you as a newsreader. I want you to try something for me. I don't know what sort of seat you're sitting in because I can't seat you. I could pretend, but I'm not going to. Now, I want you to slouch in your seat. Lean back and think about your breathing now. Can you breathe deeply while you're sort of, leaning back in your seat? Now, sit up straight. Put your feet on the floor. Set your posture. Think about what difference that makes to your breathing. I'm going to show you a short video that I shot the other day while I was doing a news reading shift at River 949. Now, that's a station in Ipswich that runs bulletins that are a blend of national and local news, as you'll hear. I'm not asking that you see this as some sort of example of excellence in news reading, because quite frankly, it's not. But I want to use this as a starting point for discussion. So here we go. It's 11 o'clock and 27 degrees at Moombra. Hello, I'm Graham Cairns. Queensland has recorded its lowest number of new coronavirus infections in more than a month. Only 5 people tested positive to coronavirus in Queensland overnight, taking the total number of cases in the state to 999. Labor says there's no reason why Virgin should miss out on a $1.4 billion lifeline. The airline is asking the federal government for the loan to stay afloat as the coronavirus downturn takes hold. Virgin could collapse if it doesn't get the money, giving Qantas a monopoly. The opposition's Catherine King says the government must not allow this to happen. An Ipswich chef says the local hospitality sector is doing it tough, but diversifying is the key ingredient needed to outlast COVID-19. Jason Davidson has been forced to shut down part of his catering business, Fig Jam & Co, due to order cancellations, but he is set to launch a new service delivering ready-made meals for elderly people still living in their homes. This is the setup that you would have seen in that video a moment ago. Your standard studio with a computer screen, which you read from, and the audios come up on another. What I'd like to show you, though, is the chair that I was using. And I'm showing this not just because it's bright orange and really sexy, but you'll notice that it has a cushion, which is designed specifically to make me sit up straight. I can't lean back in the chair. And the reason that we use that is to make us sit up straight. Why do you sit up straight? Because it helps keep your breathing under control. If you slouch, then your breathing will come from the chest rather than from the diaphragm. And it will also make you sound more laid back. And as a newsreader, you want to sound authoritative. All right. So with that video in mind, let's examine some newsreaders' voice tools. When you speak about something, does your voice convey life and colour and melody, or do your sentences come out flat and wooden and without variety as if you were reading them straight off the page? As a newsreader, you need to vary your speech. You need to express emotion. You need to express conviction. You need to place emphasis where it deserves. And especially on radio, where your facial expressions and your gestures can't be seen, your voice is your only tool. And the essence of your voice, your speaking sound, is voice quality. The primary cause of negative voice quality is tension. That's emotional tension or physical tension. So controlling tension is critical to improving your voice quality and hence your news reading. Of course, there are 2 types of tension and they are linked. Mental tension comes when you're unsure of yourself, when you're nervous, when you're fearful. It manifests itself, as you just saw, in physical tension. It manifests in shortness of breath, in tensed shoulders and back and neck, in a rigid posture. So try to physically relax when you're about to read, and that will help with that mental tension. Take some deep breaths before you start to read. Roll your neck and your shoulders to release the kinks and sit up straight. And here's a tip that you might find useful as a newsreader. Think of a single person that you are reading this story to. Talk to them. Tell them what they need to know. You're not talking to 50,000 people or to 500,000 people. You're talking to one person. Now, there may be 49,999 eavesdroppers, but that's not your problem. You're only talking to one person at a time. So let's look at some of the other issues that newsreaders face. One is indistinctness, an especially annoying speech habit. When you speak, you must be understood. If you swallow or suppress or mumble words, people won't understand what it is that you are saying. And if they don't understand, they will go away. You see, unlike a newspaper, your listeners can't go back and reread a sentence. If they didn't understand what you said, then they will simply lose interest, switch off, either physically or at the very least metaphorically, and go. Once something has gone out into the ether, it's gone. You can't reach out and bring it back. Be distinct. Use your mouth correctly. Talking through a half-open mouth is much the same as speaking with a hand in front of your mouth. People can't hear what you're saying. So open the mouth wide. Give each syllable its full value. I'm not saying that every syllable has to be given exactly the same amount of stress, because that's stupid. But you do need to articulate. And how well do you articulate? Articulation refers to distinctly formulating the word when you speak it. It includes how you pronounce individual words and how you create speech sounds. Now, you may have some physical issues. You might, for example, have a lisp. You've probably noticed that I do. Life's tough. That's just something you have to deal with. So learn how to speak as clearly as you can. And that comes with practice. We'll talk about practice soon. Reading rate is another issue for developing newsreaders. Some of us tend to want to cram too many words into too short a time. We've got so much we want to say and we want to put it all in. And of course, nobody can understand it. And that's without even mentioning our normal speaking rate. Now, speaking rate is actually difficult to change because it relates to how you think and how you behave, how you live your life. If you're one of those people who has a million things going on in your head at all times and you're thinking of 100 and then it's all happening, well, chances are you're going to speak really quickly. That's just the way that you live your life. But if you're one of those people who's slow and deliberate and thinks carefully before speaking and who never does anything in a rush, then you're going to speak more slowly. The problem as a newsreader is that on both of those extremes, you will lose your audience. If you're too slow, if you leave too many pauses in what you're saying, then people will drift away. They'll start thinking about what they're going to be having for dinner. They'll think about whether they can get onto a bus next week or whether they're still going to be stuck at home. Whatever they're going to be thinking something, and it won't be what you're telling them. And if you're reading too fast because you really want to put too much information in and they can't quite understand what it is that you're saying, again, you will lose them. Try to avoid reading either too slow or too fast because it will distort your articulation, it will limit changes of pitch, it will alter your voice quality, and it will make it harder for your audience to grasp in a single listen what it is that they need to know. All right, so we've talked about reading. But I mentioned before that breathing was the engine room of articulation and of phonation. So now I've got some breathing exercises that I want you to try at home. And I'd like you to make these part of your regular process. I've got 5 that you can do standing and then 5 specifically relating to seating and newsreading. First, I want you to exhale all of the air from your lungs. Continue pushing it out until you feel it's all totally expelled. When you've got no more air in your lungs, then your lungs will automatically inflate. That's an autonomic response. You can't help it. So inhale deeply. Observe how the air rushes in. Only a deep, full inhalation will satisfy your hunger for air. Repeat this process frequently, but not more than 3 or 4 times at each repetition. Why? Because if you breathe too deeply, too often, you get dizzy and then you fall over. That's not good. I want you to, for a second exercise, try exhaling comfortably, then take a moderately filling breath. Doesn't have to be all the way in, but a moderately filling breath, and then hold it for 15 seconds. Then exhale quietly. Repeat that process for 2 or 3 days, and then increase the holding time to 20 seconds, to 30 seconds, to 45 seconds. It may take a week or 2, but soon enough, you'll be able to hold your breath for a full minute. Now, other than a party trick, why do that? Because it helps you develop breath control by strengthening your diaphragm and the related muscles. Standing erect, I'd like you to inhale with 5 quick, short gasps through an open mouth. You'll notice that you can't gasp like that without using the diaphragm. 5 gasps, if you do it properly, will fill you to capacity. Then exhale in 5 quick gasps or puffs. The practice of gasping and puffing through your nose, particularly with your mouth closed, will help you develop stronger diaphragm muscles. Laugh heartily. A big keep going until you can't do it anymore, when you've got no breath left. Then inhale deeply and quickly. Practice doing that a few times. Close your lips and laugh soundlessly through your nose. This exercises your diaphragm, whether you breathe through your mouth or your nose. But laughing silently through your nose also helps promote better control. So those are those 5 tips. Let's go through them again. Exhale all the air from your lungs as far as you possibly can. Then inhale deeply. Observe how the air rushes in. Repeat it frequently, but only for about 3 or 4 times. Exhale comfortably and then take a moderately filling breath and start holding your breath for 15 seconds, and then 20, and then 30, and then 45, and then a minute to help develop breath control. Inhale with 5 quick gasps, and then exhale with 5 quick gasps. Try doing it through your nose with your mouth closed to develop skills. Laugh heartily. You'll sound like a loon, but that's what happens. Carry it right through until complete exhalation and then inhale. And try laughing with your mouth closed and just through your nose. So those, as I say, are exercises that I'd like to see you try as part of your ongoing development. But for newsreaders specifically, I've got 5 exercises. The first, when you're seated. Support your head and your neck and your back. You remember the chair I showed you a little earlier that had the cushion specifically designed to make sure that I was being supported. My head, my neck, and particularly my back. Here's something you may not have thought of. When you're going to be reading news or reading anything out loud, keep both feet flat on the floor. Now, you may be one of those people who tucks their feet up under the chair, or sticks them forward on a footstool, or whatever it is that you do with your feet. You may not even think about your feet. But when you're going to be reading news, keep your feet flat on the floor. There are good physiological reasons for this, mostly related to posture, but they will help your breathing. Keep your neck and your shoulders relaxed. Before you start reading, do a couple of stretching exercises just to make sure that everything's going to go okay. Put your hand on your chest and another one on your abdomen. Breathe in and out slowly but deeply. Your chest shouldn't go in and out too far, but your abdomen should go out and in on breaths. But don't push your abdomen. If you have to push, then you're not breathing naturally. Relax. And then the last exercise, while seated, inhale for 2. Exhale for 2. Pause for 1. Inhale for 2. Exhale for 2. pause for 1. Practice that for at least 20 minutes a day. Now, it doesn't have to be in a single 20-minute session. It can be 2 10-minute sessions, 4 5-minute sessions, but practice inhaling for 2, exhaling for 2, pausing for 1 for 20 minutes a day. Those are some practical exercises that I'd like you to put into play because they will help your breathing. But above all, I suggest you adopt the practice of reading out loud whenever you can. Now, if you go into your bedroom and start reading websites, magazine articles, newspaper clippings, you sit out on the back deck while the rest of the family is inside and you're reading out loud emails on your phone, whatever it is that you're reading, your family's probably going to think you're mad. But then again, let's be honest, your family probably think you're mad now anyway for some of the things you do. So what difference does it make? What difference does it make? It makes all the difference in the world because news reading, like all skills, is something that only comes with practice. Read out loud. Read out loud whenever you can. I mean, you do know how to read, don't you? You just open your mouth and deliver. So have at it.